this man that's coming up is going to prove that you guys are more than you think you are in your matter, okay? So let's give it up for what I'm hearing is one of the best speakers that you're ever going to hear. Give it up for Harmon. Come on, let's go.
Yeah. Here we go again, right? It's another one of these assemblies. They want to sit us in these seats and talk to us about making good choices and good decisions and don't do this and don't do that. And I remember when I used to sit in seats just like these and I would listen to speakers just like me. And if I was 100% real, raw, truthful with all of you, I didn't give one rip what the communicator was going to talk about. They don't know me, they don't get me, they don't relate to me. Really, they know nothing about me. I'm cool. I'm just going to do me. This afternoon, y'all, I promise you, I'm not going to stand behind a podium and hold up little fake bags of drugs and tell you what you should and what you shouldn't do. To be honest, I want to live life with you in just a moment because, see, truthfully, as I've been able to stand in over 1,500 different public schools from coast to coast and schools in Tokyo and Guatemala and Zimbabwe and Brazil and Jordan and all over this nation and all over this world, the reality of it is this. Your story, my story, it ultimately is the story. When the real you, the authentic you, not the you sometimes that you put on because we care about the opinions of the people around us, but the authentic you, that young individual that woke up this morning and looked in the mirror and wanted to feel like you had purpose and that you mattered and your life had value. But sometimes when we come to school because of the opinions of the people around us, and all of us living so vicariously through everybody else's dreams and stories and success, sometimes we come to school and the authentic you isn't the you that everybody gets to know. And the truth is I've been able to, over 8 years, live life with over 2 million students all across this nation. I want you to understand something. And I mean this with everything inside of me. I'm proud of where you sit because you're an individual and you're a generation of high school and middle school students, of junior high and senior high. You're a generation that's doing something that no one's ever had to do in this world before, as you being students and as you're having to figure out, how do I react to adversity? And how do I react to trauma? And how do I react to success? How do I react to things that I had no control? Life brought me adversity and now I just have to deal with it. You're the only generation that's had to do that with this piece of technology that's been inserted into our story in our young formative years. And we're so interconnected by the internet. And I'm not against technology or social media. We rock vids and content, but this is what I do know. I won't say it's negative and I won't say it's positive. I just know it's powerful. But what I do know is this. You're a generation that's navigating a time that no one's had to. Because as you're forming your default settings, as a high school and a junior high, you can't, and you've got to be intentional, you can't allow this to replace this. The power of the human connection. Because the reality of it is every single one of you in this gymnasium, from the front, the back, the left to the right, resiliency and grit and your ability to do hard things, resiliency and grit and perseverance, your ability to step into your story. We've all got it. But I didn't know as a young person growing up that it's ignited, the grit and the resiliency. It's ignited by the ability to have meaningful connections. That the fact is that your story and your voice and your life and who you are and you beginning to find meaningful connections, it's the very tool that allows you to continue to have resiliency and grit. And you're a generation that, again, you're doing some difficult things, and I'm proud of you because no one's had to figure life out in these formative years of your life with these extra layers and these extra things that are inserted into our story. You're the first generation. But you've got to understand the most powerful tool you will ever have. It's the human connection, and that your life matters, and we are better together because we can't see our blind spots. You are rare, you are scarce, and you are unique. And I'll touch on that in a little bit. But regardless of how you feel sometimes about yourself, Your life has crazy, amazing value. Science proves that you're rare, you're scarce, and you're unique. It's these fingertips and it's these fingerprints. It's why if you ever would get arrested and if you ever found yourself in trouble and they would take you down to the police station and they would scan these fingertips, the reason they would want your fingerprints is because of 8 billion people on the planet. These fingertips and these fingerprints and these grooves and these little valleys and mountains are unique identifiers of you, which means anything you touch, anywhere that you've been, these fingertips can trace you back to you. You are rare, you are scarce, and you are unique. And this is the world that we put value on rarity and things that are scarce and things that are unique. And even though sometimes you feel like you're just lost in the chaos of the people, and does my life matter, and do I have purpose, you've got to understand your life, regardless of how you feel sometimes, your life matters. And man, there is so much that you can achieve and accomplish if you can continue to find the courage to lean into uncomfortable. I didn't always know that life isn't hiding from the storm, but it's learning to dance in the rain. I didn't always know that pressure, it can bust pipes, but pressure is also the thing that makes diamonds. Pressure is not the problem. It's how do you and I react and respond. And so today, as I get a little time with you this afternoon, my hope and my heart is to you is this: lean into with me, because your story, my story, it's the story. It's the story of people that ultimately just want to feel like we matter, we have worth, and we have purpose. Let me rewind it back. My name's Nate Harmon. I come from Indiana, born and raised from a family of 4, and it was mom, dad, sister, and me. And when I was a kid growing up, my father, he was larger than life. He was like my role model, my mentor, my rock star. I looked up to this dude. He could never really do anything wrong. I wanted to be just like him. But we were real poor, like dirt poor. And I wanted to play ball when I was a kid. But I didn't know when I grew up, I would only be 5'7"-ish. Or I would have picked a different sport. But I wanted to hoop, and so my grandparents were super kind, and they came and poured a piece of concrete one Christmas. And my dad went and got a telephone pole, and he stuck it in the ground. And he went to some garage sale, and he found some busted, jankety backboard and rim. And I walked onto this court as a 9-year-old kid, my heart full of gratitude, getting ready to play ball with my father, and he's trying to teach me how to play ball, and I kind of already know all of that, so I'm excited to check up. And the very first time that I ever got the ball to play basketball with my father, I get it and I shoot it. True story. My dad goes, yak, and he laced the ball off my face. And I was super confused. And I pick up the ball again and I let it go, and my dad, yak. For 2 hours, I watched this dude beat the brakes off of me playing basketball. Like, I didn't watch the dumb ball go in the dumb goal, not one time. And after 2 hours of my dad demoralizing me, like, I walked off the court leaking snot and leaking tears on absolute meltdown mode. And I heard the voice coming from the back, and it was my mama. And she came out the house and she said, Tim, why wouldn't you let your son make one bucket? And still to this day, I remember what my father said to me in that moment. He looked at me with this serious tone, and he said, my son's got to understand something. It's not about making baskets on a basketball court, but in life there's going to be goals in his heart, things that he's passionate about. And he's got to understand it doesn't matter where he comes from or where he don't come from, what he has or what he don't have. He has to understand that he has the ability to see the problem, identify the problem, and figure out how to get around the problem, that thing keeping him from where he's trying to get. My son's got to understand that he's never a product of his environment, but he's always going to be a product of what he finds the courage to do. But life, maybe I'm the only one, but life sometimes as a young adult, it comes in waves. And we as students sometimes, we have to deal with things that we didn't ask for, we didn't sign up for. Life brings us adversity, and we just have to deal with it. Right after the basketball moment, my mom and my dad a few years later had called a family meeting. My dad used to use family meetings a lot because we didn't have a lot. And so maybe if we found a few dollars for some clothes for the shopping trip for the school year, or maybe they would find a few dollars to take us on a small little vacation. They used to always call a family meeting so we could appreciate the moment, I think. But growing up, I never saw mom and dad fight. Maybe I was just young, dumb, and naive, but I thought I had a picture-perfect family. The truth is, I was never allowed in my parents' bedroom growing up, and the reason they told me that is, if you get to know me, and you're getting a glimpse of it this afternoon, I got one speed, y'all. It's all gas, no brakes. I'm a squirrel, no plan B, let's go. And when I was a kid, I broke everything. And so they kind of limited me so they could have some sanity. I get it. I got a 12-year-old, an 8-year-old, and a 2-year-old right now. I get sometimes that little young machine can cause you to stress out. But my mom and my dad called a family meeting. This time it was different. I walk in and I remember every single detail. You want to know why? Because every single one of us in this gymnasium, we've got things that I call moments of impact. There are moments in your life. Sometimes they're good and sometimes they're bad. There are moments in your story that impact you in deep ways. And sometimes maybe it's positive. You won the championship, you went on a vacation, it was a good experience. You think back of that experience of something amazing that happened to you. The details are just more vivid. And sometimes in those moments of impact, it comes from hardships and tragedies. We lose friends and families to mental health. We lose friends and family to substance abuse. Sometimes mom and dad get separated. Sometimes we go through traumas, mental abuse, physical abuse, all kinds of abuse. And sometimes, good or bad, we've got moments in our life that if we pause and if we reflect, you can remember the people around you, the conversations that were being spoken, and maybe even the exact clothes that were on your back, because that thing, whatever that thing was, impacted you deeply. Moments of impact. I walked into the kitchen for the family meeting, and I remember every little part of the story. My dad to my right, my mom across from me, my sister to the left, my back to the sink and to the stove and to the fridge. The kitchen table, my dad had built it. The decorations on the kitchen wall were ugly. I remember everything. And my dad said, "Nikki, Nathan, we need to talk to you. Things aren't what they seem." And my dad began talking about a divorce and a separation. And it blindsided me because maybe I was young, dumb, and naive, but I never saw mom and dad fight. My parents don't have problems. And as a 12-year-old kid, my world changed overnight. And I didn't ask for it, and I didn't sign up for it, but now I just had to deal with it. And as I began to ask questions about why my dad moved up and moved out and ghosted us, and I began to realize that behind the bedroom door was where the verbal, the mental, the emotional abuse happened. And behind the bedroom door was the knockdown fights happened. And I remember I looked at my dad and all the addiction that happened. And I said, "I'm never gonna be like you. I'm gonna prove to you I don't need you in my life." But the problem, I didn't understand the importance of this. You see, as a young adult, the challenge for you and me is learning to maximize the creative control that we have in our sphere. And what I mean by that is this: growing up from junior high or to high school, as we go from junior high to high school to college or whatever's after the next chapter in your lives, your world, it gets bigger and bigger and bigger. Truthfully, and it's a funny analogy, but it's real, growing up, we're like a goldfish in a goldfish bowl. We don't have very much freedom. You got moms and dads over top of you. You have a lot of people. You don't get an opportunity to do too much. It's around and around and around we go. But then we come to junior high. And now you start getting a little bit later of a curfew. Maybe you start playing some sports. You have a little bit more responsibilities. You have a little bit more freedom. You go from the goldfish bowl to the pond, but then eventually you go to the high school, and now you get your license, and some of you got to get jobs, and now you start going to different kind of dances and have a little bit later of a curfew. We go from the goldfish bowl to the pond to the lake, and eventually it's the ocean called life. And I didn't understand the importance of my journey is how do I maximize the creative control that I have in my current sphere? I can't always control what I go through. I can't always control what they say. Sometimes I have to experience things that I didn't ask for and I didn't sign up for, but I just have to deal with. See, growing up, I didn't understand the importance of really the friends that I have. I couldn't control always my home life, my mom and my dad. And I know as adults sometimes and as young adults, we've got to learn to maximize and minimize certain things. We can't always change where we live and what our community life is outside of school. And sometimes our parents are doing great and they're teaching us great quality tools and resources how to be effective and proficient and prolific. But sometimes things aren't always the greatest. And so how do we as a student honor our parents, but also not allow some of their coping strategies and their coping mechanisms, if they're not beneficial, if they're not getting to the root. How do we sometimes minimize those? Because truthfully, you can show me who you are, but I always say, tell me your friends and show me your friends, and I can tell you who you are, because we absorb. That's why some of you finish each other's sentences, and that's why some of you dress alike, because you and I are a people of absorption. We walk the same, we talk the same. And the challenge is for us as individuals, how do we continue when we have creative control? Pick the friends and the peers and the people that are gonna maximize who we are, because pressure will come in your life. And pressure, it can bust pipes. Energy trying to find its way out. And if we don't deal with it properly, the energy and the frustration and the emotion, when it gets to a point where it's boiling over and there's destruction and disaster, pressure can bust pipes. But pressure can also make diamonds. And the truth of the matter is, I learned the hard way that if I can learn to step into my story, because I'm rare, I'm scarce, and I'm unique, and I was born to be able to do hard things, but I'm not supposed to do them on my own. I can't see my blind spots. We need each other. We're better together. Your life matters and my life matters, and together, truthfully, our stories are all beautifully broken. Your story is somebody else's miracle. But how do we as a community, right, continue to thrive as a school body? Because truthfully, to have meaningful connections, to have meaningful friendships, that demands trust. And a lot of times we as young people, we struggle with trusting people. And I get it. People have hurt us and disappointed us and let us down, and we didn't like the way that it felt. So we decided, I'm never letting anybody make me feel that way ever again. Right after my dad and my mom separated, you know, I could maintain a while. I didn't close the bedroom door, but my coping strategy became the fake face, the fake smile. I could walk the walk and talk the talk, and if I could hand all of you a picture that would be a description of my life, the picture that I would have handed you all would be me sitting on some beach with the most white, pristine sand, and the ocean waters would be crystal clear and aqua blue. The sunset would be yellow and orange. The picture that I would want you to think would be majestic and picture perfect. But below the ocean waters are predators and prey, and I was screaming, but I was silent, and I was struggling, and I was quiet because I just didn't trust anyone. And by the time that I went from the pond, my junior high, and I crossed over into the high school, I was able to tread water long enough, but eventually wave after wave. My freshman year, I was voted going to be one of the most successful freshmen in the class. I was trying to prove to my dad that I didn't need him. My motive wasn't probably the greatest, but I was on a mission to try to better my life. But slowly, wave after wave, I can only plug the hole in the dam for so long. My freshman year, I got to be to the place where, you know what? Maybe I should just give up on life. And it wasn't the fact, to be real, if I could be honest, it wasn't the fact that I wanted to die. There was just times that I was just sick and tired of having to deal. Wave after wave of having to deal with adversity, and wave after wave of having to deal with just challenges and conflict. And I just didn't want to deal with it. I didn't sign up for it. I didn't ask for it. And so I remember when the thoughts and the whispers of maybe, Nathan, you should just end your life. No one's gonna miss you and no one cares, right? I had a hard time believing that I was rare, scarce, and unique. I had a hard time really looking in the mirror and feeling like I mattered, I belonged. And so I got to this place when I started really struggling with thoughts of giving up. You know how the pressure came out as well? I wouldn't control the internal pain. I didn't know how to open up about the hurts and the pains and the wounds, but I remember when I began to deal with physical pain. I remember when I would begin to self-harm myself, and even though this wouldn't fix this, it would mask it and it would band-aid it. It became a coping strategy that gave me this counterfeit look-alike substance. It would band-aid it for a moment, but I would wake up just as empty as I did the day before. I remember when I started dealing with an eating disorder of bulimia, right? Because I cared so much about the opinions of the people around us. I began finding all of these coping strategies that would never get to the root. Mental health and anxieties and depressions. Anxiety gets born in what if this will happen, and what if that'll happen, and what if this will happen. And too often we let our imagination run wild, and we're so terrified of sometimes of conflict, and we get terrified of adversity, and we just don't realize sometimes That we think that hiding from the storm is what life's all about. But again, you'll hear me say it a lot. Life isn't hiding from the storm. It's learning to dance in the rain. It's realizing the symphony of your story. That, man, pressure doesn't have to bust pipes. But it's what I do is what I believe. Let me ask you a question. For real, for real. Not you. Hear me. Not you as an individual. But how many of you do you know a friend? And I want you to please lean in and be real with me on this. How many of you do you have a friend or a classmate, somebody that you care and you believe in, that this school year and in this journey of their life, they've talked to you or you've heard them entertain the idea of? How many of you do you have friends that you care about right now that you've heard recently talk about the idea of maybe giving up on life? They've contemplated the idea of making a decision and literally maybe even ending their life. You just know somebody that you care about close to you. Raise your hand. Raise your hand. Don't be afraid. How many of you know somebody? And everywhere I go, I ask these questions and hands get raised. And whoever you may be in this gymnasium right now, whoever that hand may represent, I don't know your story. I don't know what you've been through. I don't know the challenges. I don't know exactly the whys, but what I can tell you this, you are beautifully broken. You are better together. Your feelings aren't final. You're not alone. You matter. Your life has purpose, worth. The challenge is that we are afraid sometimes to use the tools of each other. And so we isolate and we try to do it on our own. How many of you do you know somebody, not you, but somebody that you just know who battles with self-injury and self-harm? You know somebody that you care about that wrestles and messes and challenges, and they deal with self-injury or self-harm of some way, of somehow. Raise your hand. You know somebody, right? How many of you do you know somebody, not you, but somebody that you know that battles for real eating disorders on some level? They care so much and they are caught up in some really unhealthy coping mechanisms when it comes to their image. You know somebody. Raise your hand on the eating disorders, right? See, the truth is I've been in all of those spaces and all of those places. And at the end of the day, I just didn't understand that a lot of these strategies, these coping mechanisms, self-injury or self-harm or my eating disorders or sometimes these suicidal ideologies where I would isolate. In the moment, it kind of feels like it's helping, but you wake up and you're just as empty as you were the day before. You know how the pressure came out in my life too? It started coming out this way. Hurting people hurt people. I want to feel like I matter and I belong, but I don't know how to articulate that. And so I've learned when I was going through school, I would come to school and I would step on you and I would clown on you and I would get my friends to laugh at my jokes, or we can get on these keys and we can say hurtful things because hurting people hurt people. And truthfully, I would get in fights and you may whoop me or I may whoop you, but it wasn't even about winning the fight. It was about me trying to prove that my life mattered. I would try to take my worth and take my value. But hurting people hurt people. And even though my friends may laugh at my jokes, or I may become the class clown and I would get everybody to laugh, or I act like I didn't give a rip about anything, I would wake up and be just as empty as I was the day before. You know, there's a lot of times in my life, a lot of times in my story, right? Areas that I know that I should change, or I want to change, or I need to change. And it's not even have to be some of our mental health or our behaviors of how we treat each other. And it doesn't even have to be substance abuse. It could be procrastination. It could be you kind of being better with your time management. But there was a lot of times in my life, areas when I would look in the mirror, the authentic me, I knew there was areas that I should change. I want to change. Really, I needed to change. But you know what? Nothing would ever change. Because change is uncomfortable. And none of us wake up and say, today, I want to be uncomfortable. No, man, we run back to what we've always been. And we lie to ourselves and we say we're okay where we are. And even though this isn't where I really want to be, it's what I know. And so I'm okay with the comfort of staying the same, even though inside of me, I got dreams and I got goals, but I always just don't have the courage to believe that I can do hard things too. See, I've been in all these places and spaces. I got a little bit older my freshman year, voted going to be one of the most successful freshmen in my class. My mental health became real. Suicidal attempts and thoughts and struggles became real. Anxiety that crippled me, self-injury and self-harm, eating disorders.
And then I get angry and mad and I'm stepping on people. But then some friends said, hey, Nathan, on the weekend, come pop the pill, come take the drink, come try this, come experiment around with that. My dad was an alcoholic and an addict, and I was going to prove to that dude that I didn't need him. You know what's crazy about sometimes we as just students, and maybe I'm the only one, but man, I know at home sometimes we've got parents and systems of care and grandparents. Sometimes they aren't maybe making and giving us the best example of how to do stuff. And sometimes they hurt us, and sometimes people do things that really affect us. I was so consumed not to become like my dad. What you feed will grow, and what you starve will die. And I found myself so bitter and angry at my father, and I wouldn't let it go, and it would consume me, and it really was unhealthy, and I was connected to this negative energy. And what happened is I got stuck on repeat, replay, rewash, recycle, repeat, replay, rewash, recycle. And I was so focused not to become like him, I walked right into his footsteps. Because truthfully, I was so focused on him, I wasn't focused on dreams and goals and hopes. And I wouldn't forgive him either, right? Because we as people, we struggle with forgiving people sometimes. And so when we don't forgive, consciously in the psychology, we get connected to negative emotions, and we get connected to the negative thoughts and the negative patterns, and we think if we forgive them, it will justify what they did to us. And I don't want to forgive them and make them think that it's okay. And so we hold on to it. And the bitterness, it lives rent-free in our head. And it keeps you from focusing time and energy and your potential on things that matter. Because what you feed will grow, and what you starve will die. Yo, man, I don't have the picture, but on the socials, on the Instagram, we'll put it up there. We don't only have a screen. But I would show you a before and an after picture. That me at 18 years old, I started getting involved with addiction and popping pills and taking drinks and getting caught up in different kinds of behaviors of just different substances. And the challenge for our generation with the fentanyl, and there's some things out there that will take your life quickly and vastly and without any second chances. I just put my 23-year-old niece in the ground. I've been around too many amazing young students with moms and dads your age, young people that have taken their lives, and young people who had compromised with substance abuse. See, the truth is about substance abuse is this. No one wakes up and says, today I want to be an addict. No, what happens is, just like mental health and some of our negative coping strategies, at the end of the day, we're walking wounded. There's something deeper inside of us that we don't know how to articulate. We don't know how to lean into because we don't trust. And so for me, when I popped the pill and I took the drink and I gave into the peer pressure, I was already walking wounded. And just like self-injury and just like self-harm, the substance abuse or the alcohol, it kind of numbed the senses. It kind of gave me this counterfeit fix. But I would wake up just as empty as I was the day before. And the challenge with some of these things, like addiction, when you first began and that you're just hanging out with your friends and it's a good time is what you tell yourself, but really you're walking wounded. And so addictions like this, it's like a cute little bear cub. Cute little bear cubs, right? If you were around a baby, brand new grizzly bear and mama bear was gone for some reason, you would see a 3-day-old bear cub and, it's cute. The problem is when you begin to feed the bear cub, and the bear cub grows up, and now the addiction gets a hold of you where you have to feed it, because if I don't feed it, the instincts of the bear cub could kill me. You see, the truth is there was a lot of times in my life that I was finding coping strategies that would just never get to the root. I didn't understand the importance of the human connection. I really didn't understand the importance of this. What I give away is what I get to keep. I used to walk so wounded, and I would use the beaten brokenness of my past, and to be honest, I would almost sometimes use it as sympathy, and I would try to get people to see that I was struggling, so they would tell me kind things, and those kind things would feel good. But just because they told me certain things, I would go home, and I didn't feel that way because I didn't own those feelings. I didn't realize one of the most powerful tools I have to my mental health is that even though I'm struggling, I don't have to have it all figured out. But what I give away is what I get to keep. Getting involved and serving each other and adding value to each other and signing up for community projects and clubs and sports. Giving something that you can keep your mind on and your focus on. And it's not that you're running from your problems. It's realizing the principle of what I feed will grow and what I starve will die. It's learning to leverage the pressure in your life. That pressure doesn't bust pipes, it can create diamonds. But here's what happened to me. At 23 years old, 18, 19, 20, just going through the motions. A bunch of my friends graduated college. They said, hey, Nate, we're coming home. We're gonna have a party. Do you wanna go? And I was like, yeah, for sure. It's what we do. I'm 23, I'm legal age to drink. It's what I've been doing since I was really before I was even supposed to. But my whole life, right, there were these coping strategies that I was using that would never get to the root. You know, the truth is when I say things like this, like we need each other, we're better together, communication activates resiliency. A lot of times we as students, we struggle because that demands trust. And we don't trust people. And we have reasons for not trusting people. Somebody's hurt you, somebody's disappointed you. Really, we don't trust people too, because when I open up my heart and I share really what's happening to me, I don't know what you're going to do with it. And so the fear of the unknown, it can hold us hostage. I've had to learn the hard way. Trusting people isn't based on feelings, because feelings aren't final and feelings aren't based in facts. Like I've said before, I struggled with my self-esteem and self-worth when I was growing up. I was a heavier kid. If I walked by you and I made eye contact with you and you two were laughing, I would just assume you were clowning on me. And the feeling that I had, it was authentic, it was real. But when I would confront you and have a conversation with you, you two were talking about the football game the night before. And just because I felt a certain type of way, it doesn't mean my feelings were based on facts. And I've had to learn throughout my story, trusting people isn't based on feelings. Trusting people is based on time. Those friends to your left and to your right, those mentors and those coaches in your life. Trusting people is beginning to let people in that you know want to see you win. And sometimes those people you don't want to use because they're going to hold you accountable. They're actually not going to tell you what you want to hear, but what you need to hear. And so sometimes we struggle with being real and being raw. I was 23. I should have been a senior graduating college. A bunch of my friends come home, let's go to the party. Let's go. Buy a bag of pills, to be honest. Case of alcohol. We go to the party. The alcohol runs out. Hey, Nate, we're going to go to the bar. I'm 23. I'm legal age to drink. Let's ride. I get a ride. I get to the bar. I have 10 more shots of alcohol. I'm lit up. I'm faded. What's the big deal? I'm just going through the motions. It's what we do. The party and the bar is about to close, and they said, hey, Nate, there's an after party at TJ's house. Do you want to go? And I'm like, yeah, for sure. It's what we do. And they said, well, it's at T's house, and he's not there. We got the keys to his house. Do you want to ride? And I'm like, yeah, I know T real well. Let me leave a little bit early, go get the after party ready. When the bar closes down, we'll bring everybody there. I get on the phone, though, because I was too drunk to drive, and I called my friend Priscilla. Priscilla had moved from Alabama 2 months previous. She had befriended a group of about 8 of us. She wasn't there that night. I needed a ride. I was too drunk to drive. An Uber thing wasn't real at the time. So I called my friend Priscilla. Can you come get me? Nate, I'll be right there. She shows up about 30 minutes later. I bought a case of beer to take to the after party. My buddy Mike stops me. Nate, you're not driving. Nah, bro, she is. She's my DD. We shook up. I'll see you at T's house. But somewhere in the process of leaving the bar and getting to the car, somewhere in the transition, I put the case of beer in the back passenger seat, but somehow I got the keys. And we were right around the corner from TJ's house. And when I talk about moments of impact, moments when I can remember certain details and things in your life and my life that are just more vivid. I was right around the corner from TJ's house, and I can see her face, and I can hear her voice, and she simply said this word, and it echoes, and it rings, and she screamed one word, and it was tree. And then I was in a helicopter. And then I woke up in a hospital bed, and police officers were over top of me asking me questions. What's her name? And where's she from? Because her cell phone was locked, and Her ID wasn't in her purse, and she was fighting for her life. And I said, her name's Priscilla Owens, what's going on? And they said, well, Mr. Harmon, we can't tell you anything. And my ankle was shattered, and I was confused, and my mama had showed up, and she was in the corner of the hospital room, and I was trying to process everything. For some reason that morning, they didn't arrest me. They were still trying to figure out what happened, and Priscilla was alive but struggling to survive. And they said, we'll be in contact with you soon. And maybe because my ankle was broken, they didn't know about the hospital bill, or they were still trying to figure out what kind of crime, a DUI or a DUI with bodily injury. But they released me that morning, and I crutched out into the car with my mama. And I sit into the car with moms, right? Like, I just wanted my mama. I don't know what it is about us as young people. It's when our back's against the wall, that's when we want to get help. But I look at my mom, and she said, Nate, your life's about to forever change. See, my sister was a nurse, and when the wreck happened, she got the phone call. By the time she got to the hospital, I had already been lifelined out to Fort Wayne, Indiana. She relayed the information to my mama. My mom shot up to the hospital. For some reason, they let me go home that morning. But my mom had the details. She said, Nate, things are about to change. When you left and you hit the tree at a high rate of speed, there was no brake marks, no skid marks, no signs of you trying to stop. 60 to 63, boom. And upon impact, you had put on your seatbelt, but she didn't. And upon impact, she launched forward, and there was a collision with the windshield, and there's a lot of brain damage and trauma. Like, their life's about to change. And you hear things like that, and I remember when I used to sit in seats just like these, and I get home, and I called the police in the hospital, but nobody would tell me anything. I wasn't family. The newspaper had said 2 lifeline to Parkview Hospital, 1 fighting for the life. So I remember I stayed at my friend's house, and I made every deal with myself. Let her live, I will change my life. I made every deal with whoever could hear me in the middle of that night. Let her live, and I will change my life. And at 2:47 a.m., this white Jeep Cherokee came around the corner, and it was the paper delivery guy. And as he came by, everything goes into slow motion, and I could see the white of his eyes, and he rolled the window down, and the paper hit the ground, and I jump up, and I rip it open, and I read 3 words. Crash victim had died. And my friend Priscilla, you'll see a picture if you look at any of our medias. My friend Priscilla, because of my choices and my actions, and as a 23-year-old kid, she was gone. And it was my fault. I don't ever make any excuses. It's my fault. And if I could change anything, of course, I would go back to that day, into that moment, into those minutes. But if I could really change anything in my life, it would be that time when I was in junior high and I was in high school, and if I would have just known the power of 2 simple processes. Can I make the next right choice, and can I treat people the next right way? Because what I feed will grow, and what I starve will die. How do I step into my story and take control of what I can control? I can't control necessarily home life. I can't control what they say about me or how they treat me, but I can control how I react and how I respond. If I could change anything, it would be your generation of understanding life isn't hiding for the storm, but it's learning to dance in the rain. That life's gonna come wave after wave, but you and I were born to do hard things. You were born to navigate adversity, but you weren't born to do it on your own. You matter, and I matter, and we matter, and we're better together. But what's tough for some of us, that demands like vulnerability and transparency, and a realness and a rawness that a lot of times you and I struggle with because we care so much what it looks like. If I could change anything, it would go back to that point in the place in my life when I really began to believe that I'm rare and I'm scarce and I'm unique. And if I can just step into my story, sometimes I always say, I could tell you the bottle's empty, I could tell you the bottle's full. Really, it's in the perspective of who holds it. I'm at a place in my life right now, I don't care if it's empty or it's full. I just am excited that I got a bottle. Listen, I won't tell you it's negative or positive. I'll just tell you it's powerful. And every single day in your entire story, you've got creative control. Can you control what you do? All of you that drive, in the side view passenger mirror, you'll read a few words. Objects in the mirror are closer than things appear. But here's what happened. 3 days after my wreck, the Owens family wanted me to contact them. I had never met them before. Priscilla had moved from Alabama. She befriended us, and my choices, and she was gone. And they want me to contact them. And what do you say? I'm 23. I should have been a senior graduating college. I pick up the phone terrified. And I get met by Carolyn, the mother, and Olivia, the sister. And they're weeping. And they said, Nathan, we don't know you. We're angry, we're mad, and we're confused. But we've decided in this moment, we don't think one dumb choice should destroy two families' lives. And we've decided in this moment to pick love over hate and to forgive you. And we're asking you to do two things. Don't let our daughter pass away for nothing, and try to make the world a better place. And I don't know what you do with it as a 23-year-old kid, but of course I said yes. But that doesn't even make sense to me. My mom has even said, Nathan, if something like that happened to you or to your sister, I would probably demand justice and judgment. And that's truthfully, that's proper and honest and fair for most of us. But there was a family that found some crazy courage in the middle of some of the most difficult times in their life to step into their story and to do hard things and to realize that at the end of the day, what they give away is what they get to keep. And they didn't have to. But you know, the truth is, if a family could forgive me for the loss of one of their kids, their siblings, there was a whole lot of bitterness that I was holding on towards a lot of people in my past. Bitterness towards my father and bitterness towards people. A lack of forgiving even myself, because we sometimes have a hard time forgiving ourselves. We think we are what we've done. It's hard for us to believe that there is so much more for us, that really we, every single one of us, we have so much potential to become more than what we've currently become. But if we have to find the courage, but choices have consequences. And just because the family forgave me, the state of Indiana didn't. And at 23 years old, I was charged and I was sentenced to 15 years in prison. My out date turned into May of 2024. And as a 23-year-old kid at the time, it would have been easy for me to go to prison and say, you know what? I've made too many poor choices. I've battled suicidal attempts and struggles and tries, anxieties and depressions, self-injury, eating disorders, anger and rage and substance abuse. See, I had found all of these counterfeit connections. I had a sense of community, but I never had to get real with these people groups. We just shared habits and we just shared coping strategies. I was having a really difficult time of trusting people and finding meaningful connections. So I was like a stone skipping across the top of the water, and I never had any depth. But at 23 years old, it would have been easy for me to quit. But you know what I remember? I remember my daddy smacking this basketball off my face, and he told me, Nathan, remember, as long as there's breath in your lungs, there's hope in your heart. And as long as you're breathing, yes, you can. And I made a promise to the Owens family. So at 23 years old, I looked in the mirror, and I slapped the words, change the world, on the bathroom mirror. And I've lived my life from this point, just like all of you that look in the passenger side mirror. Objects in the mirror are closer than they appear. And if I can just make the next right choice and treat people the next right way, it doesn't matter my environment. It doesn't matter necessarily the story of what you've been through. It factors in. It affects you. But if you can learn to take the pressure and the pain and the story and the journey of your life and step into it, you're not a product of your environment. You're a product of what you do. And so at 23 years old, I put change the world on the mirror. You know why some of us struggle with mental health? It's because we as young people on this side of COVID and on this side of technology, we've had a hard time of really re-engaging. We've had a hard time of really beginning to look in the mirror and to believe that we're so much more than what we currently are. And who you currently are isn't bad. You're beautifully broken just the way that you are. And I say we're beautifully broken because I don't care who you are or where you've been. I don't care how much your grades are thriving and how pristine your life may look. We've all got stuff. In some way and somehow, we're all better together. And for some of us, we struggle because we don't have any direction. We have a hard time really believing in the mirror that in this room are entrepreneurs, and in this room are realtors, and in this room are people that are going to go get their PhD, and in this room are psychologists, and in this room are musicians, and in this room are athletes, and in this room are creators, and in this room is cosmetologists, and in this room are veterinarians, and in this room are people that's got a beautiful story and that you can do hard things and you were born to do hard things. But sometimes you struggle with believing, so we just settle for it is what it is. And we struggle with our mental health because what we feed will grow and what we starve will die. And having goals, it's not an end-all be-all to mental health. but having direction that you're going towards, it helps tremendously. And as I've stood in front of thousands of students, millions of you, a lot of us right now, we're not engaged. We're not taking control of what we can control. Too often we just slide and glide and go over where life will take us. But at 23 years old, as a person in prison, I put Change the World on the mirror. I didn't know that I would become a communicator. I didn't know that I would get released from prison 11 and a half years early. I didn't know that maybe I could use my vernacular and create kind of a conversation that would have rhythms and ebbs and flows that would bring some of you to lean in and to begin to believe that you can do hard things too, because your story, my story, it's the story. I just wanted to make a difference. And so your dreams and your goals don't have to be so vivid. Every T doesn't have to be crossed and every I doesn't have to be dotted. But what's the thing inside of you that lights you up? And if you can every single day be the next best version of yourself, where do you have creative control? So I started living my life with two principles: make the next right choice and treat people the next right way. I couldn't control when the food came and the food left in prison. I couldn't control when the light switch went on and the light switch went off in prison. I couldn't control when the door opened and the door closed in prison. But you know what I could control? I can make my bed every single day. And it wasn't about I was supposed to, but where in my sphere as a student, where in my sphere as my surroundings, do I have creative control? And can I make the next best choice and treat people the next best way? And if you can try your best every day, what happened with me is I signed up for psychology classes, and then I have a choice to do my homework or not. I got involved with programs that are trying to change the way that I think. It'll change you. The program that I was in was lowering the return rate to prison. They wanted to take an ambassador and try to promote it around the state of Indiana. See, there was a dude in chaos that wasn't concerned about the chaos. I took ownership. I'm going to make the next right choice. When they went to pick somebody, there was a dude in there doing the best ability of taking extreme ownership, learning the journey of the dance of life in the rain. They picked me. I started going all across the state of Indiana while incarcerated. I would leave prison in street clothes. IU, Ball State, Purdue, D1 colleges. I would get dropped back off at the prison. Eventually, the governor and his team, they wrote a letter. This young man's more effective out there than he is in here. And I walked out of the prison 11 and a half years early. Why? Because not one of us in this room are a product of our environment. We're a product of what we find the courage to do. I need both of you to come down here real quick. Listen to me, y'all. I got released in 2012, 11 and a half years early. You know what happened? I went to my hometown. And everybody in my hometown, they said, Nathan, you're an idiot. You're never going to change. You're always going to be what you've always been. And I said, you know what? You have the right to feel that way. I have given you plenty of evidence. I have given you plenty of reasons and resources. Y'all can just stay there for just 1 second. In 2013, I reached out to 100 schools in Indiana. One school said yes, one turned to 10, 10 turned to 50, 50 to hundreds. Since that point, I've been in front of over 2 million of you, 1,500 schools, been one of the most booked school communicators in the nation, and that means nothing. Honestly, that means zero. I'm just trying to show all of you in this room resiliency and perseverance and grit. It's a part of all of our story. If we can just find the courage of the importance of the human connection, the importance of not what we just can take, but how can you as an individual this school year add value, because what you give away is what you get to keep. The importance of when you walk into a classroom, or you walk onto a sports field, or you walk into the office, or you walk into the gas station, or you walk into wherever you walk into at home. How can you be counterculture? And what I mean by that, we live in a world that is me, 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 me. Take, take, take. And it's consuming us, and it's festering unhealthy thought processes. But I've learned if I could reverse it, how do I give? Because what I give away is what I get to keep. How can I add value? People used to tell me, Nathan, don't give up. I love you. You're not alone. And that would feel good. But you know what? I would use my brokenness and my past to try to get empathy from you. And you would roll up on me and say, Nathan, I love you. I believe in you. Don't give up. And that would feel good. But I would go home just as empty as I was the day before, because you can't extract your worth and your value. I didn't own what they were saying. I didn't believe what they were telling. But when I began creating experiences, when I began to try to add value, when I would care about your story and your dreams and what you're doing and what you're going through, and even though maybe I was struggling, I've learned what I give away is what I get to keep. And so when I would create moments, right, of pulling up next to you and seeing you're having a bad day and encouraging you and caring about you and caring about your story and caring about what you're going through, why do we start smiling? Because truthfully, what we give away, no, it's good, what we give away. And when I would take time and care about people, what I couldn't get by you telling me, I believe in you and don't give up, and that would feel good, but I didn't own those feelings. But when I create experiences, and I would walk away, and I knew my life just added value to you, to the club, to the team, you can't take away my experience. And self-worth and self-esteem gets birthed by caring about others, even though sometimes we may even still be struggling. I need both of you to come here real quick. What's your names, y'all? Corey? Coy? Coy, what's your name? Ashton. My son's name Ashton, bro. What's up, man? You're a little bit older than him. Stand right here. Coy, listen, my whole life, I've realized, man, if I could find meaningful connections, growing up, right, I would want to change, I should change, I need to change, but nothing changed. But Ashton, man, when I began to realize real knows real, and I began to let people in my life, let me see your hand, man. And I got real serious, right? When I began to let people into my story and like really unshare, and not on some cookie cutter surface stuff, but begin to let people into my space. You can't make me be better, and you can't make me be worse. But there's something about the human connection at the end of the day, right? Why do counselors and therapists ask questions? Not because they're gonna solve our problem, but when we start talking, something happens. There's something about community. There's something about us as a people. We can't see our blind spots. And you can't make me be better, but don't let me move. When there's fights or flights, and I wanna go back, and I wanna give up, there's something about the human connection. And there's something about you as a community. And I'm serious, I'm not against technology, but we can't let that replace this. That was a good one. The power of the human connection. But I want to share something with you. It was 2019, before COVID. I had just finished speaking in 253 public schools in one school year. I was busy. I had just spoken at a school in Colorado. It was a big deal, and like governors and important people were there. And they had like a clipboard, and there was a pre-show walkthrough. And as I'm getting ready to go on stage, right, there was a ladder backstage, Ashton. And I told the stage guy, Coy, I said, hey, yo, I need you to put the ladder on the stage. And he was like, Mr. Harmon, I'm like, yo, bro, I'm the speaker. I love you, but I need the ladder on the stage now. Dude, I had no idea what I was going to do with this ladder. I had some impulse of inspiration. But ever since that moment, I've realized something about these ladders, Ashton and Coy. They're just like you, and they're just like me, and let me qualify that. Everywhere I go, I ask for these ladders, and they're every single color, yellow and orange and green and black and tan and white. Everywhere I go, I ask for these ladders, and they're 6 foot and 8 foot. I've seen 20-foot ladders just like this. Everywhere I go, they're made of different material, fiberglass, aluminum, steel, and wood. No matter what they look like, their shape and the color, they've all got their own story. Some ladders are picture perfect, and they're in your parents' garage, only to come out once a year to clean the gutter. Some ladders, though, get covered in drywall and paint, been through some things. Some ladders, you'll be driving down the road, and you'll see ladders on top of work trucks and the elements of storms of life. But no matter what the ladder looks like, Ashton, no matter what the ladder's been through, Coy, the only way they're effective is you gotta climb them. And too often in my life, I didn't trust people. And too often in my life, I didn't think I needed anybody. So I would come over here, and yep, I'm rare and I'm scarce, and there's value to me, and I can do things, but I don't trust people, and I won't let anybody in. And so you try to do it, and there's good days and there's bad days, and there's ups and there's downs, and you fail, but you never reach with confidence what you could do. And when I got out of prison, I took Change the World off the mirror, and I put it on my first house, and I got married to my wife, and we had 3 kids, and I put it on my next house, Change the World. When COVID happened, I had 113 talks canceled in 3 days. My wife and I went out to the desert. We social distanced for real. We camped in the middle of nowhere. My son was starting to struggle. And I was gonna stop talking. And he said, no, my mom and my wife said what we're doing is important. So we said, we'll sell everything that we have and we'll continue to step into uncomfortable, because uncomfortability is where we grow. And we sold everything that we had, Ashton, and we bought an RV, a bus, and I put Change the World on that little bathroom mirror. Coy, to be real, I never thought I would have a smaller bathroom than I did when I was in prison. But for 4 years, my bathroom was little in that RV. For 4 years, we traveled as a family. But this is what I've learned. I want you to grab a hold of it right there. And I want you to grab a hold of the ladder right there. And when I began to realize the power of the human connection, you know what? Yep, I got to apply myself. What I feed will grow, and what I starve will die. I need people around me. And when I begin to have meaningful connections, real knows real. It won't be perfect. Those horizontal relationships, my friend, we understand each other, we relate to each other, we dress the same way, we kick the same music, we rock the same way, we do life the same way. My people that aren't counterfeit, that aren't coping strategies of substance abuse or clowning around or just some of my negative coping strategies, but I have real people in my life, real people that I open up to, and I'm real because real knows real. And that's just facts. But this demands trust, and this demands vulnerability. But when I began to realize that I could do it afraid, and I could put people into my space, hold that ladder tight, and things happen that I can't control in life, and there's ups and there's downs, and I may fall. Here's the challenge, y'all. A lot of us were like, Nate, I got those horizontal relationships. The real challenge is, though, is this. Who's your vertical relationships? Who are the mentors and the coaches? Who are the people that are in your life? The community that's even brought me in here today. Resources at your schools got counselors. There's different kind of tools and places that even if you're struggling, there's a 988 hotline, right? Like there's a whole system of community around you that sometimes we as students, we struggle to maximize the creative control of leveraging every resource that we have so we can be the best version. And so, you know what? Hold that. I can get here. But Ashton, you really can't help me because any farther, because when I got the phone call and I found out that my sister was, or I found out that my dad, right? Whatever that is, maybe you go through the abuse, the trauma. Maybe you lose somebody close to you to an unfortunate moment. You can't always use the Ashtons and the Coys and the Ashtons. But when you find those vertical relationships, and I need real quick, I need 2 staff members, 2 teachers, 2 educators. I need just 2 adults. I don't care who they are. I just need 2 of you to come here quickly. Probably 2 of you. I need 2 of you just to come here quickly. There's 1, and I need somebody else. Come on. And I need 2. And this is the part that we as young people wrestle with. I want you to hold there, and I want you to hold here. Because I can use the Coys in my life, and I can use the Ashtons. But when I begin to go through certain things in my life, like I got to apply myself. But when I begin to get to places that the Ashtons and the Coys can't help me, am I willing to leverage every resource that I have, the mentors, the coaches that have been through some things that just want to see you win? And when you begin to find out the reality that your story and my story, it's the story, and we're better together, and you begin to surround yourself with people that no matter what happens or where it's going or what's going on, you can find confidence, and you can stand, and you can navigate, and you can get to places that you could never get on your own, and you can navigate adversity and chaos and things that pivot and move on your own. But we as students, right now in this generation, we struggle with those horizontal and those vertical relationships. And I'm just here today tell all of you one thing, man. You are rare, you are scarce, and you are unique. And your story matters. And your story is somebody else's miracle. And you're not meant to do this on your own, but can I give them a round of applause? You guys can go sit down real quick. Thank you, Ashton. Thank you, Coy. I want to end you with this. My time's about to be done. I saw a lot of our hands that got raised when we said, I know somebody. I saw a lot of hands that got raised that said, you know what? I got a friend that I care about that's struggling. I got a friend that I know that, man, that's wrestling. I want you to know you're not their friend because they have to always like you. You're their friend because you will do whatever it takes to keep them alive. You're their friend because you believe in them even when they don't believe in themselves. So the question that I ask all of you, right? I need each one of you individually to climb your ladder, to find your dreams, to find your goals. What you feed will grow. But the real question, the rest of this school year, I ask you, whose ladder are you willing to hold? Whose ladder are you willing to say your story, my story, the story, and we are better together? You are beautiful. I am proud of you. You are rare. You are scarce. You were meant to not hide from the storm, but dance in the rain. And you were meant, and you can make the next right choice. But treating people the next right way isn't just because it's what we should do. Treating people the next right way is what will actually help you navigate you becoming so much more than what you currently even are. We are Your Life Speaks. My name is Nathan Harmon. Thank you guys.
After 8 years, 1,500 schools, almost 2 million students, the mission and the passion, it's still the same. Just to see young people believe that they can do hard things. To see young people believe that they actually can accomplish goals. And to see young people believe that they can have the tools to navigate so many of the challenges that we are facing in today's culture. My name's Nathan Harmon, and we're Your Life Speaks, and it's an honor to get to live life with you. You know, the truth is, it's just generation, and one of the reasons I do what I do is because we're watching a generation navigate a time in world history that no students have ever had to. And my heart is for them to never forget the most powerful tool we have. It's the human connection. And I've just learned in my journey, there's something about we as people learning, it's not about hiding from the storm, it's learning to dance in the rain. If we can live our life and just make the next right choice and treat each other the next right way. Transparency, accountability, hard work, good choices, and valuing people. And this is the reason I believe that every single life, every single student, every single adult, no matter if you're a teenager or you're working in corporate America, that every one of us, our life, it speaks, it screams, and it shouts. Your story, my story, it's the story.